na ili tuwe na nafasi nzuri ya kuendelea kuomba as we pray for our families. The devil knows that even many times when he cannot get us directly, when he cannot attack us directly, he has a way of reaching the family, na hizo attacks katika familia zinaweza kuadhiri mengi katika kazi ile ambayo Mungu angetaka tuifanye. Bwana asifiwe. Na kwa hivyo wakati mwingine ni vyema kusimama katika pengo na kupigana vita za kiroho ili kuweza kusimamisha familia zetu. So from last Friday nilikuwa na share a number of observations ambazo nimefanya as I walk with young people, na just sharing reflections ambazo zinaweza kuwa za manufaa kwetu as we think about this family month. Na kitu kimoja nikakisema ni ya kwamba some of these things sio watoto wetu tu or the generation behind us that is struggling with it. Hata sisi wenyewe wengi wetu napata ya kwamba we are also struggling with these things, and as we struggle with these things then inakuwa ni ngumu sana kuweza kuwaleta wale sehemu ambayo wanatakiwa kuwa, and therefore you realize that it becomes a struggle. You are not able to bring them where they ought to be kwa sababu wewe mwenyewe you are very far from there. Na siku ya Friday tukaongea juu ya identity and how many young people have an identity crisis. They really do not understand who they are. And we looked at several aspects or components of identity from when they are young, wakati ambapo they are able to identify with you, and do they find that they belong, and going all the way to finding their authentic self. Wao ni akina nani? Ni nini ambacho Mungu amewapatia na ni kwa sababu gani? And can we show them that they have value the way they are, ya kwamba they are variable the way they are. So and then now from there coming to the identity, the difference now that comes after they believe Christ, what does it make them? So they started identifying with you. As they grow up, they start discovering themselves, who exactly they are. What are their temperaments? What are their giftings? What are their physical figure? How do they look? How do they appreciate and like that? And then after that, now we come to the place of believing Christ and now being spirit controlled. Yakoba, even if they have this temperament ambayo umemsaidia kuappreciate ya kwamba hivyo ndivyo Mungu alimuumba kwa sababu yake, then they are able to now see what work does the Spirit do to me, and what difference does the Spirit make. And as I was talking about the temperaments, later on I sent the 4 temperaments katika group yetu ya WhatsApp, nikawaambia kwamba when Tim Lahai wrote why you act the way you do, later on he wrote the self-controlled personality, ya kwamba Roho Mtakatifu sasa akiwa in control, mambo yako namna gani. And then we talked about purpose and them being able to identify that I'm here because there is something that God brought me here for, and that purpose now gives them focus, gives them direction, enables them even to avoid certain things and to have moderations, kwa sababu anajua ya kwamba I am important, I am of value. If I don't behave like this, I'm not impacting myself alone, but there are so many that God has called me for that would be impacted by my inability to fulfill the purpose of God in my life. Just being able to first and foremost appreciate that I'm not here just to pass time. I'm not here just to have fun. I'm not just here to occupy space on the earth. I'm not just here to as a statistic and I pass away. So that even before they realize what my purpose is, let them first appreciate that I am not here for the sake of being here. And like I said, it starts with us getting to that level and then now moving them. Because if you yourself feel like you're on earth to occupy space, if you feel like you're on earth to pass time, if you feel like you're on earth just because you are a statistic, then it becomes very difficult to help another find value in them being on earth. Bwana asifiwe. Na kwa hivyo inakuwa ni muhimu sisi wenyewe kujiangalia kabla ya kuangalia wale. And allow me now to go to point number 3. And the third place where I find a lot of crisis is the place of faith. Is the place of faith, the place of belief. What do they believe? And you'll find that I was telling the men during our men fellowship yesterday here that faith is almost like a war. Ni conflict kati ya mwili huu ambao tuko nao na mwili wa rohoni, kwa sababu imani haionekani, lakini mwili huu unapenda kile kinachoonekana, unapenda kile kinacho make logical sense. Lakini wakati mwingi imani ambayo Kristo anatuita kwake, sometimes it doesn't make faith itself, that I believe that God will do 1, 2, 3, 4. The question is, where is this God? How is he going to do it? And you find when we have a generation that is very analytical, that is looking for logic in everything, then they will struggle with the issues of faith. The problem comes in when they don't have a very good foundation of faith from when they are very young. Bwana asifiwe. So that by the time wanafika teenage na wanaanza kujaribu kureason mambo, reasoning things out, kama foundation yao ya imani si mzuri, inakuwa shaken. And I don't know whether it's on Saturday that it was mentioned that there is, the world is out here, and it is out to attack and fight and win our children and the generations that are behind us. Bwana asifiwe. And so the world is very intentional in terms of how they are doing things. Very intentional. Whether it is whether you are talking about the the generation that believes in believing in self, whether it's a generation where issues of sexual distortions are, homosexuality and all these, they are very intentional, and they are entering in every place. It was it yesterday or yesterday but one, and we were just watching some cartoon with my children, and this is a cartoon, but all the kids in the cartoon are dressed very well in the homosexuality, LGBTQ flag, and very pronounced. And when you watch some of the acts, you can tell there's a direction, meaning they want to capture this child from when this child is very young. Bwana asifiwe. And so what happens, and I remember on Saturday tukiambiwa ya kwamba Muislamu akapeleka mtoto wake kwa shule ya Christians, na akasema I am not bothered kwa sababu nimempatia foundation mzuri, hawa Kristo hawezi kumbadilisha. Bwana asifiwe. Swali lililo ngumu ni sisi wa Kristo vile ambavyo tulivyo, na ni vipi ambavyo tuna ground watoto wetu katika imani. Surprisingly, some of the strongest young people in the faith ni wale ambao wamekuja kwa imani wakija kukomaa, wakija kuwa wazima. Lakini I think we sometimes make assumptions ya kwamba kwa sababu mtoto wangu amekuwa church, nilimpeleka church siku ya dedication na hajawahi toka, amekuwa akienda Sunday school, amekuwa kwa concert ya Sunday school, amekuwa kwa Bible memory verse, amekuwa akiiba na watoto, and then we make an assumption huyu mtoto akona mizizi katika imani. But in my work I have realized that some of these people ambao wamekuwa kanisani miaka mingi kuliko wale wengine, many times are the most shaken when the shaking of their faith comes. Sometimes they're the ones who are not able to stand. Why? Because we thought things will happen, tuliassume mambo yatajipeleka tu, na kwa hivyo tukakosa kuwa intentional, kuwa ground katika neno, tukaassume mambo itafanyika. And that is why utapata watu wengi huko nje, hata wengine ambao wanasema mimi simuamini Mungu, mimi siamini hayo mambo ya imani, some of them who will attack the church and say mimi kanisani hata siwezi kutaka. Utapata ni wale ambao walikulia kanisani, they grew in church. Some of the strongest people you'll find in faith are people who are telling you, me when I gave my life to Christ, my father chased me away from home. Lakini unapata huyo mtu ako grounded. Lakini wale, kwa hivyo unapata ya kwamba if we are not careful na hatuko intentional katika kuground watoto katika faith, we will get a generation ambayo tunafikiri ni watu wa imani. So they will do things unashangaa, kwa nini umefanya hivyo? Utakuwa unapeana story unasema huyu mtoto nimemlelea kanisani. Brothers and sisters, kulelea mtoto kanisani sio kumaanisha ya kwamba atakuwa Mkristo dhabiti. To be honest. Bwana asifiwe. And I've realized that as I interact with them, you realize that. I met a lady the other day. She's a little bit older now, could be in her 40s or towards her 50s. And of course, she regrets her actions, because what happens is that later on, life catches up with you. She regrets her actions, but the actions she took after teenage and early adulthood, including how she got married, were to run away from the church. She was a daughter of a pastor, a clergy, growing in the church. And she decided, when I grow up, I want to be as away from the church as possible. Na unapata ya kwamba, when she grew up, she was telling us she looked for a man who seems to be far away kutoka kwa kanisa as possible. Of course, like I'm saying, later on in life, this catches up with them. And they start regretting and wishing I knew. But what happens? Ni ya kwamba there's a crisis of faith that happened. Of course, also because children are very observant, and they are watching to see whether the faith we are confessing can be seen katika matendo yetu, lakini pia mafundisho na kuwa ground ni ya muhimu. Bwana asifiwe. Na kwa hivyo tunapowaza juu ya generation iliyo nyuma yetu, and like I keep emphasizing, lazima tuwaze sisi wenyewe imani yetu iko namna gani, na ili tuweze kuwapatia wale watoto wetu grounding mzuri ya imani, na ili watakapofika katika msukasuko, watakapofika katika kujiuliza maswali, watakapofika ambapo generation yao ina question mambo yale ambayo wanayafanya, inawauliza na kwani wewe umeokoka sana, wakati watakapoulizwa hivyo, will they have the conviction, will they have the stability ya kusema wacha nikae nimeokoka sana hivyo nilivyookoka. Bwana asifiwe. Was talking to a teenager the other day, na alikuwa ananiambia shule yao wanamwambiaga yeye ameokoka sana na haifai hivyo, but because of the grounding ambayo huyu mtoto ako nayo, anasema mimi nitabaki hivyo nimeokoka sana. Bwana asifiwe. And I long ago, maybe 4-5 years ago, I give an example. Nikasema ya kwamba when there is a time I wanted to put a sign on our gate where the bell was, and I taped it very well and printed ring the bell on your right, na nikaonyesha na arrow. Lakini singekuja na hiyo karatasi niibadike hapo kwa gate hivyo, maana mvua itakuja, hata jua peke yake ikiwaka juu yake for a short while inafutika hiyo maandishi, haiwezi kusomeka tena. And therefore I went to a cyber na nikawaambia wa laminate, and they laminated it. Walipo laminate vizuri, nikakuja nikaiweka hapo, kunyeshe kuwe na jua, sijui nani aliitoa, but ilikaa sana. Kumenyesha, kumekuwa na jua, kumekuwa nini, haiharibiki. Bwana asifiwe. Muda ule ambao Mungu ametupatia na this generation, whether amekupatia katika wao watoto wako, amekupatia mahali unamoishi, amekutupatia kama watu nao mentor, what you are doing is to insulate them the way I insulated that paper, because releasing them to this cruel world is inevitable. We will have to. Bwana asifiwe. Lazima utawaachilia. Atafika high school, utamwachilia, ataenda high school, atakutana na wengine. Hapa you can control. Hapa naweza mwambia kare hautaenda hiyo birthday bash, sijui, kwa sababu sijui hao mnaenda na wao ni akina nani. Lakini napompeleka shule jana ninamwacha huko, sijui nimemwacha na akina nani, sijui kwao wamelelewa namna gani, sijui tabia za kwao ziko namna gani. Swali ambalo ni la muhimu kujiuliza ni ya kwamba sikuzuii, lakini have I insulated you? Ya kwamba ile mvua ya huko nje ikinyesha, ile jua ikiwaka, ile galika ikikuchapa, you can still remain the same without being spoiled. Praise the name of the Lord. And so when God gives us an opportunity, we need to insulate them, especially in the area of faith, so that they don't get into this crisis and we don't have to resolve issues kwa sababu ya imani yao. Bwana asifiwe. The other area that I found common as I talk to these young people is the area of a value system, life value system, having a value system. All, because what happens is that a value system builds a culture. Kwa hivyo unapata, and I've already said that everyone should have a basket of values. I keep repeating, you cannot pass what you don't have. And therefore the first question about lazima ujiulize, do I have a basket of values myself? Kuna mambo ambayo naweza sema 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ni values, sijui values nini kwa Kiswahili, but these are things that I hold dearly within my heart, na ya kwamba haya ni mambo siwezi kucompromise. Lakini unapata ya kwamba we have a generation that is coming that does not have values. They go with what they find. You know, in the Bible, there's a story given of some men whose parents had died long ago, and they were, I think it's the prophet who was called, and he was told, call them into the temple and give them wine. Na wakaja, wakapewa divai. Wakasema sisi hatuwezi kunywa divai, kwa sababu our household, from our grandfather, tulikanywa na hatukunywagi divai. Bwana asifiwe. Do we have a value system, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in our church, are there things that we hold dear to ourselves? Talk of things like honesty. Talk of things like kindness. Talk of things like hardworking. Talk of things like, integrity. And even most of the issues that our country is going through is because watu hawana values. Ya kwamba, yes, the opportunity is there, but there is a conviction that keeps me from taking up that opportunity regardless of how good it is. Ya kwamba, hii ni pesa iko hapa, hii pesa naweza iba, naweza kudanganya, naweza, lakini vile nilivyo lelewa, the way I was brought up, there are some values ambazo zilikuwa instilled ndani yangu na zimekuwa convictions ambazo siwezi kucompromise. Bwana asifiwe. And these are things that you must start from when they are very young. Things, and of course, even the current education system, CBC, I think it has a component of values that they say they do. But my question is, in our homes, in our churches, and how they get into people is when they are repeated many times. Is when you're able to tell them, here we don't do this. Here we don't tell lies. Here we don't, from when they are very young, because you cannot bring values when they are already grown. Bwana asifiwe. But again, they must be able to see those values in you. So that if you're telling them we don't lie here, na wanasikia ukipeana story mahali na wanajua ukweli ni uongo unapeana, then it brings them into a confusion. Bwana asifiwe. So unapata a generation ambayo haina value system. Haina value system. Wakitoka huko nje, hakuna kitu cha kuwazuia kutenda yale matendo yanatendwa na wengine. Kuna vitu zingine is not even like sinfulness, but people just value them. People grow hearing some things. Unapata ni msichana ni kijana, they have grown in a system, wanapata ya kwamba one of the things that is valued is being able to do a holy wedding. Na unapata huyo mtoto kutoka akiwa mdogo kuna kitu anatazamia, na akienenda anything ikikuja ni kama anasema me I want to get there. Praise the name of the Lord. I want to get. Why? Because from when they are young, that is something they have held as variable. It's something that they really value, and they have grown with it. So I've come across people, they have no values. It is what opportunity comes. It is what looks lucrative. That is why somebody will come and ask me a question and tell me, in fact, there is one who was comparing. So alikuwa na ndugu yake mmoja, alikuwa ameokoka, na ndugu mwingine ambaye hakuwa ameokoka. Lakini kwa sababu ya kwake yeye wokovu si kitu. Kile anachoangalia ni hawa wawili wako anje. So anakuja ananiambia, look at my brothers. So and so and so and so. Hata kama ningepewa chaguo ya kuolewa na mtu, si ningeolewa na huyu ambaye hajaokoka. Kwa sababu hiyo value haijaingia ndani yake ya kwamba hawezi kuwa unequally yoked with an unbeliever. The problem is that, like I have said, these things will catch up with them later. Let alone they will come crying. Let alone, because you cannot get married to a person who is not born again, and you are born again, and you don't cry ahead. That is my discovery. That a time will come when they will cry. Many times they will come back. But the thing is, how did they get there? How did they get there? They never had a value system. They never knew what our culture was. How do we do things? Are there things we don't engage in? Are there things we don't involve ourselves in? And so, it becomes very important for us katika siku zao wakiwa wachaga, and as they grow up, to ask ourselves, what are the things that we value, and how do we instill them to this younger generation? And this instilling must be very intentional. That I want them to hold these values. I don't want them to go and lie blatantly without a worry. I don't want them to go out there and see people being successful by stealing, and then they say, if I steal, then if I become successful, then the end justifies the means. Let them understand the process matters, because we have a generation that doesn't think the process matters. It is the destination for them that matters. Na kwa hivyo wakiona mtu ambaye anaendelea vizuri, hawataki kujua alifika hapo aje. Wanataka kuona ako hapa na mimi naweza kuwa hapo namna gani. And therefore you find they have no value system. They are not cultured. Hakuna culture ambayo wako nayo yenye inaweza kuwazuia kutenda mambo mengine na inaweza kuwaongoza kutenda mambo mengine. Na unapata, that is why even when some will come with and talk to them about materialism, they'll jump on that bad wagon. Why? Because wakiambiwa pesa ni kutajirika, ni kuwa millionaire, there is nothing that prevents them from doing whatever is being done, and they get into trouble. The understanding that I am away now from my parents, they can't see me, they can't check my phone, they can't check what I'm watching, but there is something in me, there's a conviction that tells me you cannot watch this, you cannot do this, you cannot go here, because you find and why it need to be a process that is very intentional is so that it again doesn't become enslavement, so that someone feels like the moment they get freedom, they want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 against what they have always been told not to do. And that is why the approach sometimes becomes very important, because you find some who tell you, I am doing 1, 2, 3, 4 is because I've gained freedom. And because I've gained freedom, I'm no longer living with my parents. Maybe they have gone abroad, they're living in a different country, nobody is watching over them. They can now do everything that was they were prevented to do. What a value system does is that it gives you the assurance that this person is responsible. They are able to choose what to do and what not to do. Praise the name of the Lord. That was number 4. Number 5, of course, it's in the area of relationships. And how I have phrased it, I have said independence versus dependence. Independence versus dependence. How do we help this generation to understand that you are not created to live alone? Uliumbwa kati ya watu, na watu ndio Mungu hutumia kuweza kukufikisha mahali unapoenda. Lakini wakiwa hapo wagundue bado ya kwamba wao ni watu binafsi na ambao watawajibika, whether ni mbele zake Mungu ama ni katika maisha yao kibinafsi. And I saw this, it's almost like a paradox. I saw it when we were attending my daughter's parents' academic day, na mambo mawili yakajitokeza. And sometimes we may never realize how confusing it can become. Ya kwamba wakaambiwa, ukija hii gate mlikuja na nani? Ulikuja peke yako na wazazi wako. Ukitoka mtatoka na nani? Utatoka peke yako. Kwa hivyo naambiwa, maana ulikuja peke yako na utatoka peke yako, wachana na hawa watu wengine, jitengeneze wewe, utoke ukiwa mtu wa maana. Bwana asifiwe. Alafu baada ya hiyo tukauliza, na shida ya hii kazi yetu ni nini? Tukaambiwa hii shida ya hii kazi yetu, hawana cooperation, hawasaidiani, hawafanyi kazi pamoja, hawaungani. Lakini si ulimwambia alikuja peke yake na ataenda peke yake. Sasa shida tena ni ya kwamba hawaungani. And that is why I'm saying it is about independence versus dependence. Ya kwamba ni vipi nitamwambia huyu ya kwamba you have a duty to individually account for your own life. But again, you must always remember that successes in life come when we work together, when we hold hands together, when I identify the people who are supposed to carry me ahead. If we don't get them out of that, many of them will go to either extreme. Ataenda kwa extreme moja ya kwamba mimi sitaki marafiki, mimi sina rafiki, mimi nafanyanga mambo yangu peke yangu. kwa sababu marafiki niliambiwa si wazuri. Ama utapata mwingine ambaye ataenda to the extreme na shida ya kuchagua ni marafiki wa aina gani ambao watatembea na wao. And so you find one is suffering because there is nobody they are walking with. There is nobody who is supporting them on their journey. There is nobody who is helping them wakati ambapo wamejipata katika changamoto za maisha. Hakuna mtu ambaye wanaweza kuongea na yeye wakati ambao wako stressed. Hakuna mtu ambaye wanaweza kumuuliza swali wakati ambao wameshindwa. Lakini unapata mwingine ako to the other extreme, influence ya wale anaotembea na wao ndio inayommaliza, ndio inayomuingiza katika shida. So ni vipi ambavyo tutawaletea hiyo balance that yes, you will account for your life. Utawajibika wewe binafsi, utawajibika wewe mwenyewe, lakini maisha huwezi ishi peke yako. Na ili waweze, based on their value system and based on their purpose and based on their identity and based on their faith, make a selection of who do I now depend on. That even though I'll account alone, I can depend on people, but that dependence must be informed by my identity. Who am I? Must be informed by my purpose. What do I want to achieve? Must be informed by my faith. What do I believe in? Must be informed by my values. What are my inner convictions? What are the things that I can do? What are the things that I cannot do? And then they are able now to make a choice of who do I go with. Nitatembea na nani? Nitazungumza na nani? Nitaspend time na nani? That becomes a very tricky, because and sometimes we even as parents we can also go to the extremes. And that is why I said wakati ambapo Pastor Chogo Richard here on Sunday alisema, aliongea juu ya, I like the term, aliongea juu ya creating villages. Nikasema ya kwamba kama nazuia huyu mtoto kuwa na uhusiano na mtoto yule na yule na yule, then lazima on this other end ni create an avenue ambayo ataweza kuwa na uhusiano na wale ambao ninataka awe na uhusiano na wao. Because you cannot leave a vacuum. You cannot remove them from there and then leave them hanging and you're not showing them where to go. But these are things that you must do very early in life. Sometimes when you come to impose them at an advanced age, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult. One role of a parent is to not identify but connect. It is not like tell this person, I want so and so to be your mentor. But is there a way of connecting them? Is there a way of creating an avenue where they can meet such people so that they are able to build relationships around their identity, their purpose, their faith and their value system? They are not creating relationships outside that which is going to help them. So we have a generation, so I've identified we have a generation that struggles with that. They are either too dependent on their friends and therefore peer pressure comes in, negative influence comes in, or they have gone to the other extreme, they are secluded, they don't talk to people, they don't want, some cannot even open up even when they are going through issues. And that is why you might find even many young people getting into diseases that they should not be getting into. You know, stress-related diseases, or even some dying of suicide. Why? Because they went to an extreme where they don't know how opening up is done. Hawajui kulilete na watu. Na kwa hivyo, lazima tuwasaidie kubalance hiyo. Ya kwamba, as they continue knowing that they are accountable, they can't blame anybody for their own lives, then they also know that they need people to be able to walk together with them. Bwana asifiwe. So that is also an area that is important, and the Bible is very clear on that area, and speaks about it in very many phrases. Of course, when Paul is writing to the Corinthians, he tells them, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. It's impossible for you to have bad company and your morals remain straight. Haiwezekani ukawa unatembea na watu wote ambao hawajaokoka na wewe umeokoka na unafikiria ya kwamba you'll make it to the other end. There is a way that resistance is worn out over time. But again, the Bible says in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, that a man who has many companions will soon come to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So unapata ya kwamba ni vizuri tusaidia watoto wetu kujenga urafiki na urafiki thabiti. Kwa sababu unajua siku zile ukiangalia zamani we had deep relationships. Yani mtu anajua yule ni rafiki yake. Lakini unapata ya kwamba generation inakuja ambayo relationships ni very superficial. Juju tu hakuna zile husiano in depth, very superficial. Na unapata ya kwamba it becomes very important for you to have very deep relationships na kuwasaidia na hilo. When I always talk about the 4 guys who took the paralytic man to Jesus, wakambeba, inadhihirisha urafiki thabiti. Ukiangalia mafundisho katika kitabu cha Nehemiah, nimekuwa nikifunza kitabu cha Nehemiah to a group that we mentor, and one of the topics we had is how can you connect to the right people, watu ambao mtajega na wao. Biblia inasema Nehemiah alipotoka kwa mfalme, so he knows his individual role, anajua sehemu yangu ni ipi, lakini anaenda anawatafuta watu wengine ambao watajenga na wao. Na walipokuja, Biblia inasema alipowaambia vile mkono wa Bwana uliokuwa juu yake na vile alikuwa determined kwenda kujenga ukuta, the Bible says they spoke to one another, na wakasema let us arise and build. Why? Because they had a mind to work. Bwana asifiwe. Connecting to the right people. Connecting to the right people. When this generation gets to do business and then they're looking for business partners, have we grounded them in a way that they can connect to the right people? Even leave the issues of business. If they're still just in school and they're choosing someone to be in their discussion groups, are they able to choose the right people? And the right people whom wakiconnect na wao, they'll be able to get to the next level. Because tunaweza kuwa support up to a certain level, lakini kuna space ambayo tutafika, lazima tutawaachilia. Na tukiwaachilia, ni nani atatembea na wao? Ni nani atawabeba? Ni nani atawatia moyo? Kwa hivyo ni vizuri we help them to be able to work on their relationships in the area of independence and dependence. The other area that I've realized has so many issues with this generation is the area of decision making. The area of decision making, making choices. And the struggles are 2. 1 is indecisiveness. 2 is being short-sighted. Indecisiveness, inability to just choose. And why do they have inability to just choose? They have issues with their identity. They have issues with their purpose. They have issues with their faith. They have issues with their value system. And so they don't know what leads there. If you are seated at CENCOM and kama umeketi pale CENCOM na unagoja basi ya kwenda KNH na umeketi hapo 46 ikija, it's just another piece of metal that has arrived. Na haikusubuhi akili. Inakuja, wengine wanakibia wanaruka, wanaenda, inapita. Pakija ingine kama na baiti ya kwenda sijui kama ni ya Kibera ama ni ya wapi, hushughuliki. Lakini 7C ikifika, unainuka haraka na unaenenda kuingia kwa ile basi. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu una ufahamu wa mahali unako kwenda. Na mahali unako kwenda is informed by kusudi unalotaka kulitimiza. The purpose is what informs where you are going. So maybe you are going to KNH to see someone who is admitted in that hospital. That is the purpose. So the purpose determines your destination. Na hivyo unapata ya kwamba kama mtu hajaweza kuidentify vizuri purpose yake katika maisha ni gani, inakuwa ngumu kuidentify destination anayotaka kwenda. Na inapokuwa ngumu kuidentify destination anayotaka kwenda, sasa inakuwa ngumu kuidentify opportunity itakayombeba na kumfikisha mahali ambapo atakwenda. Bwana asifiwe. Na hivyo unapata ya kwamba you have a generation that is indecisive. A generation that keeps ukimpatia choices 3-4 achague, hajui ni gani achukue. Hajui ni maana hana kitu cha kuinform uchaguzi wake. Kama ni marafiki hawezi kuchagua. Akifika hata shule unapata even subject kuchagua inakuwa ni ngumu. Akiwa nyumbani kama ni kuchagua kukaa hapa ama kwenda hapa ama kufanya hivi, it becomes very difficult, because then it brings about the issue of indecisiveness. The other issue I have said is the issue of short-sightedness. Ya kwamba wanapofanya decisions zao hawana consequences at the back of their mind. There's a time ambapo kuliambiwa ya kwamba choices have consequences, and that is the truth of the matter. Ya kwamba chaguo, you can choose the action but you can never choose the consequences. Wakati tu umechagua kile ambacho umekichagua, consequences zinakufuata baadaye. Bwana asifiwe. So unapata generation ambayo haioni bali, inaona sasa. Haifikirii miaka 20 nayo kuja, miaka 30 nayo kuja, nimepatana na huyu kijana anakaa babre, anakaa poa, anakaa nini. Hashughuliki, hajiulizi miaka 10 nayo kuja, tukiwa na watoto 3-4 kwa nyumba, huyu jamaa atakuwa namna gani? Huyu jamaa atapeleka watoto kanisani ama atawapeleka kwa klabu? Hii maswali haingii katika mawazo yao. Huyu jamaa ana values zipi? Na hivyo unapata wanaona hapa ya kwamba kwa sasa nasikia niko na ile joto ya mwili, twende happy, twende outing, road trip hapa na pale, but they don't see farther than here. Na hivyo unapata inahitajika msaada wa kuwafungua macho waone ubari miaka inayokuja. Ya kwamba miaka 30 maisha itakuwa kivipi? Na ili anapofanya chaguo analolifanya sasa, ajue ni chaguo litakalo impact sio sasa peke yake. Kwa sababu wakati mwingine utapata chaguo litakalo impact miaka mingi inayokuja, either litalikwaya kazi mingi ama litalikwaya kazi mingi ama litalikwaya sacrifice ya kufanya. Bwana asifiwe. Think of even simply like career choices. So unapata somebody makes a choice of a career that is easy to do. Maybe you go, unaenda, unaifanya miezi 3, unafanya training miezi 3, unaanza hiyo kazi na unaendelea. But the question they never ask themselves is, je, miaka 20 itakayo kuja, will there have been growth katika ile career? Lakini unapata hiyo career ambayo inafanywa na miezi 3 haitokagi hapo. Bwana asifiwe. Haitokagi hapo. Ataenda afunzwe kitu hiyo, afunzwe hiyo miezi 3 na atapata kazi haraka sana. Mwingine ataenda chuoni, amalize miaka yake 4 akisoma, afanye miaka hii 4 imeenda, amalize maybe hata akaekae mwaka 1-2 bila kazi. Lakini come and check them 10 years later. Huyu ambaye alienda akafanya degree, akaenda akafanya masters, akifanya kazi, akafanya PhD, they are now at their top. Huyu alifanya course ya miezi 3, it ends there. Yani akimaliza aanze hiyo kazi, there is never growth. That is the ceiling. Lakini kwa sababu anaona miezi 3 alafu nianze kupata pesa, wacha nichukue hii. Hataki ku make sacrifice, akiangalia miaka 30 nataka niwe wapi. Bwana asifiwe. Na siku zama hizo kazi ni baya, because there are people who are gifted and who can do that. But I always say, when there are resources and an opportunity to undertake something that has greater chances of growth. That 10 years I could still be growing. Pick those things. Bwana asifiwe. There are times when resources might not be there. There are times when opportunities might not be there. There are times when the intellect also might not be there. Bwana asifiwe. Maana zote tumepewa hekima ya mawazo tofauti. Kuna mwingine ili anaweza fanya ni hiyo tu. Bwana asifiwe. Ni aende and I'm saying this with all due respect. Aende afunzwe kushikanisha hapa na kushikanisha hapa na ajue hiyo kazi. Nimeavoid kumention kazi yoyote, but you can think of kazi zingine ambazo zinaingia hapo. Haina intellect yake hapo ndipo iko. That is very good, but the truth of the matter is watakuwa limited katika maisha. Bwana asifiwe. Watakuwa limited katika maisha. I can give you my own example. When I finished the university, and I think mambo mengine ni Mungu tu utusaidia. There was that time banks zilikuwa ndio Equity tu ilikuwa imekuja. Equity ilikuwa imeanza kugrow hapo 2001 2002. Nikimaliza around 2004 it was ilikuwa kwa arc ya growing, branches being opened everywhere, and because of that other banks cooperative na zingine nazo zikaanza kufungua branches all over, na kazi za bank teller zilikuwa available sana, and that time they were paying about 28 to 32,000. But so here you are offered kazi, unaweza kuwa bank teller, na hapa umekuwa offered internship ya kuwa auditor na unapewa 10k peke yake. It's very hard to choose. It's very easy to think wacha nichukue hii 32 hii 28 wacha nichukue, and there are many who did that. Lakini tukafanya mahesabu na tukaona yes, let me take this internship ambayo itanipatia nafasi ya growth, itanipatia nafasi. Unajiuliza, nikichukua hii kazi ya audit na nipate experience katika hii kazi ya audit, in 10 years zinazokuja what will be my value? Nikiketi kwa interview niulizo una experience ya auditing, how much money can you ask? Tuongee hata kama tunaongea mambo ya pesa, how much money can you ask in 10 or so years? Like myself now, it's now, so we are talking of 204 205, so we are talking of how many years? 17 or so. So 17 years later, what can I go for? And then nikichukua hii kazi ya teller, and we are talking about availability and opportunity. Sometimes that is the only work that is available, but we are talking about decision making. You have choices to make. Nikichukua hii kazi ya teller, na hesabu pesa na pea mteja, na hesabu in 10 years what will be my value? It's posterity. You're looking at the future. You're not short-sighted. You find unachukua hii kazi ya 10,000 na like myself, I took an internship ya 10,000, and over time, got employed and all that. Today the difference is huge. I don't know to tell you what the difference could be, but it could be several hundreds of thousands. Bwana asifiwe. Several hundreds of thousands. Why? Because of a single choice that was made 17 years ago. But that choice was based on what was the amount then. So we have a generation that has difficulties making decisions. Bwana asifiwe. And so if there is something that we need to equip this generation with, is the ability to choose. The ability to choose. And sometimes the ability to choose is the ability to seek counsel and analyze that counsel. Bwana asifiwe. Just 10 years ago, 2012, I personally got 2 jobs at the same time. Nikapata job Care International as an internal auditor for their Somalia program, na nikapata job yenye niko nayo sahi with the US government. Nilipopata kazi hizi mbili zilikuwa ngumu sana kuchagua, kwa sababu hata mshahara na most of the terms were almost the same, and it was difficult to choose. But do you have the ability of knowing who do I go to, and when they give me the counsel ambayo wamenipatia, how do I analyze it? Bwana asifiwe. And I knew nikaenda kwa huyu, and whatever they told me, there are those who are feeling no, Care International, no, chukua hii, no. Then I'm able to look at those things and analyze them. We need to empower them to be able to make those choices. Bwana asifiwe. Include the choices of someone to marry. You find a young person ambaye akona wanaume ama wanawake watatu na anashindwa ni mgani, na inamsumbua sana. Bwana asifiwe. I don't think they struggle with such things. Praise the name of the Lord. Yes, they struggle. They're struggling with who do I. There are these three men. There are these three women. Who do I choose to marry? And it becomes very difficult for them to make a choice. And if they are short-sighted, then it might mess them up. Praise the name of the Lord. So we must be able to help them on the place of decision making. What are the considerations that you make? Does my faith matter when I'm making a choice? Does my identity, does my purpose matter when I'm making a choice? Do I need to just think about now, or do I even think about the future? Do I just need to think about myself, or are there other people that I need to consider in my decision making? Whatever decision it is, whether it's even a decision to go for a movie or not, whether it's a decision to go out or not, whether it's a decision to have this friend or not that friend, whether it's a decision to choose subjects in school, whether it's a decision to, I don't know whether some of you have sat with your children, mukichagua shule as a high school. Na unajiuliza, what is informing that decision? Bwana asifiwe. Or simple things like, and you know, you start teaching them early, that like teaching them, ukichagua hii ujue ndio unaenda nayo, huchagui hii, life does not afford you that opportunity. Me as a father, I remember going out with my children, and so we are there, and Gianna, as young as she is, anasema anaona Jeremy amepewa juice, anasema na mimi nataka juice. Anasema okay, mletee juice. Analetewa juice. Akiletewa juice, na yeye kare anaitisha milkshake. Anasema hapana, mimi sitaki juice, nataka milkshake, lakini juice ilishakuja. At that age lazima umfunze ya kwamba ulimwengu haukupatiagi a second chance. Ile choice ya kwanza ulimake, many times you have to go with it. Praise the name of the Lord. Ile choice ukichagua ni huyu ninaoa, kaa ngumu na yeye maisha yako yote. So lazima ukue mwangalifu ukichagua. And so to teach her, namwambia okay, si ulichagua juice, si ni wewe uliitisha, sasa ni juice utakunywa. The next time we come, make sure you choose the right one that you want. Praise the name of the Lord. Because if we afford them sometimes the opportunity to change those things, they will believe that is how the world is. And so if I go out there na nichague hiki, nione sio kizuri, I can drop na nichague kingine. But you and I know the world doesn't give you that opportunity. Dunia haikupatiagi opportunity ya kuchagua kutest, kudrop, kuchagua kutest, kudrop. There are many things, ukichagua hii ndio njia unapita, you enter onto a path of no return. What asifiwe. A path of no return. Ya kwamba nikija hapa nipate kuna njia mbili, moja inaenda hivi na moja inaenda hivi, na inabidi nichague moja ya hizi. Kuna moja ukiichagua, iwe nzuri ama baya, it's a way of no return. Hauwezi kurudi. Ukienda umeenda. Madhara yake kama iko, na kama utarudi ukiwa na madhara ya kwenda huko. Bwana asifiwe. And that is why, like, take for example, if a child chooses, sexual immorality, they take that route. They could come back with, sexually transmitted diseases. They could come back with a pregnancy. They could come back with a... So you take that route, you can never go back at the beginning. It is never the same again. Praise the name of the Lord. And we must be able to help this generation understand, when I make a choice, many times I cannot be able to revert the impact of that choice. There's a class we were attending, the one I mentioned with Pastor Richard, and I liked that class because it was helping us identify rubber balls and glass balls in your life. Bwana asifiwe. Ya kwamba there are rubber balls in your life and there are things that are glass balls in your life. Take for example something like a career. A career is a rubber ball, but a family is a glass ball. If you find that there is competition between career and family, if you find there is competition between leisure, and family, you must choose which one do you drop. If you drop the glass ball, it is done. If you drop the rubber ball, you can always pick it up. It will bounce back. Praise the name of the Lord. Na kwa hivyo kwa maisha yako na kwa maisha ya generation inayokuja, lazima tuwasaidie identify what are my rubber balls and what are my glass balls. What can I drop and pick up later? What if I drop, it is done, it is gone. Praise the name of the Lord. It is in the area of decision making that I can drop a thread. I can always come back, check on them or get another. But I cannot drop my wife, I cannot drop my child because of a thread. Because a thread is a rubber ball. This is a glass ball. How do you balance those things so that they're able to make choices that are going to help them in life? So we have a generation that has challenges in decision making, very indecisive. And you know what happens with the indecisiveness is because doors of opportunities open and close. If you have somebody who is indecisive, mtu ambaye hana ile haraka ya kukata kauli, kile kitakachofanyika ni ya kwamba anapongojea tu ule mlango utafunga na ama ile dirisha itafunga, because opportunities are like windows, they open and within no time they close. Na ikifunga ni hivyo, opportunity imepotea. Na kuna wengi sana wamepoteza opportunities wakiwa tu in that valley of decision making. Ako tu katika ile anajaribu kuchoose ni gani, akienda kuchoose anaambiwa imeenda. Bwana asifiwe. It is like a simple thing like yesterday. So I took my daughter back to school. There are some books they needed to buy na tukaenda kwa publisher kununua. Tukiwa hapo akaona kitabu moja alikuwa anahitaji, lakini hakuwa amemake up her mind kama aichukue. So akiwa hapo kujaribu ku make decision, mtu mwingine akaja akaichukua na akainunua. Tukienda kuuliza tukaambiwa imeisha, hakuna. It is just a matter of delay in making the decision. Praise the name of the Lord. And sometimes even indecisiveness can be very expensive. So it's very important for us to help them make decisions. The other area that I have found challenges is the area of boundaries. Boundaries. Watu ambao hawana mipaka. Hawana mipaka. And boundaries come in very many aspects. It's not a new concept because I think Goldman wrote about it quite a while back, about emotional intelligence. And many times unapata emotional intelligence to a certain extent it deals with these boundaries. Understanding myself, understanding my identity, who am I, understanding my personality and everything, and then understanding other people, and then being able to relate with these people in a way that is both gives honor, but at the same time is beneficial. It brings out the profit, the benefit that it ought to bring. So you find a generation that does not know boundaries. Hakuna mipaka, wanaweza kufanya anything with anybody anywhere. Wanasifiwe. Lakini you and I know ya kwamba maisha is about boundaries. Ina mipaka. Sio kila mtu unaweza kumuongelesha vile ambavyo unaweza ongelesha. Sio kila mtu unaweza kumkaribia vile unavyoweza kumkaribia. Sio kila mtu unaweza kuwa vulnerable na yeye vile unaweza kuwa vulnerable na yeye. Sio mambo yote unaweza kuanika kwa social media. Sio mambo yote. Unapata a generation that has no boundaries. Hawajui kipimo. Hawajui wafikishe wapi. Hawajui ni nani ajibiwe vipi. And so you find they will get into trouble because of lack of those boundaries. And the failure to realize ya kwamba nisipoweka mpaka, nisipojua ya kwamba mpaka uko hapa na nivuke huo mpaka, ile realm ambayo nitaingia itakuwa na madhara yake. When you get into a certain place, then for example, if you, there are places when you go, they make an assumption why you are there. Wanasifiwe. Ukiingia kwa club, umedress in a certain way, somebody will make an assumption of what brought you there. And they will treat you based on the assumption they have made. Na kwa hivyo unapata usipokuwa na mipaka, usipokuwa na kiasi, usipokuwa na moderation katika maisha yako, it becomes very difficult for you to be successful in life. So kuna mipaka kwa sababu ya this is who I am, I have my identity, clarity of my identity, this is my purpose, this is my value system, this is my faith, these are my convictions. There are places I cannot go. There are things I cannot do. There's a kind of dressing I cannot put on. There's a kind of speech I cannot involve myself in. There's a kind of exposure I cannot give myself to. So we must help them create boundaries. Know how far is too far. Know what is moderate. What is self-control. And finally, maybe I finish with this one, is that they fail to see the difference, or they fail to differentiate between pleasure versus life's serious business. You know, we have a generation that thinks that life is supposed to be fun, pleasure, and happy. And this is why you will find some of them are, they're what we call party animals. It's party after party, party after party, party after party. They get money. They don't know what investment is. They don't know what joining a circle is. They get their money. They want to go and have fun. They want to go for holiday. They see you flying. They don't know you have invested before you went flying. But they just want to feel good. It's a feel-good generation. And so, what will happen is that by the time they are hitting their 50s and 60s, it will catch up with them. They will experience midlife crisis, not because of how much resources and investment they have made, and now they are wondering how to deal with it, but because they will have done nothing. They have been all over enjoying life. They have been all over going to party after another party after another party after another party. When they get their money, it's what is in fashion. It's where are people going? Where is the best holiday destination? They don't differentiate that in life there is time for pleasure, and it's okay to have pleasure, but there are times when you have to have serious business. They go to work, they get employed, they cannot stay because they think the employer is anawashika sana. Anataka kazi ambayo atafanya vile anataka, akiwa nyumbani vile anataka. Akiingia ofisi anaambiwa unaingia hii tunatoka 5, anasema hapana. Hiyo inanifungia sana. Sitaki hiyo. Because in all I realize that serious business calls for you to be serious and calls for sacrifice. But they have been born and they have grown through pleasure. And it might not be them to blame. It is what the world has turned out to be. Siku zetu hugelipiwa na mzazi uchorachorwe. Bwana asifiwe. Ati ulipiwe uende ukarukaruke kwa bouncing castle. Ati ulipiwe, na sisemi hizo ni vitu baya, I do them myself. But we must be able to help them realize that life is not just about this. Life is not just about that merry-go-round and going around. Life is not just about your bucket list of places you want to go, your bucket list of things that you want to do, your bucket list, I want to do zip lining, I want to go to Dubai, I want to go to Zanzibar, and there is nothing else. They must be able to understand life has a serious part that requires a lot of your concentration and attention and intentionality, but it also has a fun part that ought not subdue the serious part of life. Bwana asifiwe. That anasikia, if I get my first huge salary, the first thing I want to do is go for holiday. But they don't know life is waiting for them, going back to their short-sightedness, the inability to see beyond this horizon and ask themselves, what is it that I want beyond my 40s? What is it that I want beyond my 50s? So you find a generation that is not able to differentiate between pleasure and life serious business. And so they think life ought to be pleasure. And if life has no pleasure, they are stressed. They have problems. They have issues. And sometimes out of this pleasure, they're even unable to perform even in their academics. Why? Because they're not able to differentiate that there's time for pleasure and there's time for life serious business. What asifiwe. Those 8 things, I think go think about them, and may the Lord help you see how to go about them. Like I said, I'm not preaching. I'm just sharing reflections from my journey with young people. They are more than this, but think about this: identity, purpose, faith, life values, system, independence versus dependence in the area of relationships, decision making, boundaries, and pleasure versus life serious business. Bwana sifiwe. Tuinuke tuombe.